December 3rd, 2025. LONGi Solar, the world's largest photovoltaic manufacturer, quietly suspended new project contracts in North America. Official reason? Supply chain optimization. Real reason? They can't secure enough silver paste to meet production commitments. I discovered this buried in a single paragraph of their quarterly earnings call transcript. No financial media coverage, no industry analysis. Just a throwaway line about temporary production adjustments that represents the first crack in a $1.8 trillion renewable energy transition built on a metal we're running out of. That same week, Canadian Solar delayed 3 gigawatt-scale installations across Texas and California. Jinko Solar restructured their 2026 delivery schedules. Trina Solar increased module prices by 12% with no explanation to customers. The solar industry, supposedly the future of clean energy, was quietly panicking about a 47-billion-year-old element they need to function. Here's what caught my attention. These aren't small solar startups struggling with financing. LONGi Solar generated $23 billion in revenue last year. They have relationships with every major silver refiner globally. If they can't source enough silver for production, what does that tell you about actual metal availability? But the solar industry crisis is just beginning. Every crystalline silicon solar panel requires silver paste for electrical conductivity. Not a little silver, 13 to 22 milligrams per watt of capacity. And the new high-efficiency technologies everyone's excited about? TOPCON and heterojunction cells use even more silver than traditional PERC panels. We're talking 20 to 30% higher silver consumption per panel. The math becomes terrifying when you understand the scale. Global solar installations hit 346 gigawatts in 2024. Industry projections call for 600 plus gigawatts annually by 2027. Every gigawatt requires approximately 20 million grams of silver. That's 230 million ounces annually just for solar, more than a quarter of total global silver production. And here's the part that should terrify energy planners worldwide. There's no substitute. Copper corrodes. Aluminum doesn't conduct efficiently enough at the microscopic scale required. Silver's unique properties, highest electrical conductivity of any element, resistance to oxidation, precision printability, make it irreplaceable in photovoltaic technology. The University of New South Wales published a study that should have triggered emergency meetings in every energy department globally. Their analysis showed solar panel manufacturing could consume 85 to 98% of known silver reserves by 2050. Not 85 to 98% of annual production, reserves. The total amount of silver humanity has ever discovered. But everyone ignored the study because silver seemed abundant and cheap. The solar industry built trillion-dollar expansion plans, assuming unlimited silver availability at suppressed prices. They never considered what happens when 5,000 years of monetary metal suddenly becomes the bottleneck for humanity's energy transition. I started mapping solar installation commitments against available silver supplies, and what I found was a collision course between renewable energy policy and physical reality. The Biden administration committed to 1,000 gigawatts of solar capacity by 2030. China plans 1,200 gigawatts by 2030. The European Union targets 750 gigawatts by 2030. Combined, these commitments require 2.95 terawatts of additional solar capacity in 5 years. That's roughly 1.5 billion ounces of silver, more than the entire above-ground inventory of investment-grade silver globally. But here's what makes this crisis different from typical commodity shortages. Silver isn't just an industrial input, it's also money. For 50 centuries, silver has served as a store of value, medium of exchange, and hedge against monetary debasement. When industrial demand competes with monetary demand, feedback loops emerge that amplify price volatility. The solar panic hasn't hit mainstream consciousness yet, because the industry operates on long-term contracts and forward pricing. Most manufacturers locked silver supply agreements when spot prices were $20 to $25 per ounce. Those contracts are expiring throughout 2025 and 2026, forcing renegotiation at current prices above $66. But price isn't the real problem. Availability is. When LONGi Solar suspended North American contracts, they weren't responding to cost pressures. They were responding to supply constraints that made delivery promises impossible to fulfill. When the world's largest solar manufacturer can't guarantee silver supply for contracted projects, the entire renewable energy transition faces systematic execution risk. And here's what's accelerating the crisis. Every efficiency improvement in solar technology increases silver consumption per panel. PERC cells use 13 to 18 milligrams per watt. TOPCON cells use 20 to 25 milligrams per watt. Heterojunction cells use even more. The industry's pursuit of efficiency is driving them deeper into silver dependency, just as supply constraints tighten. The timing couldn't be worse. Environmental mandates are accelerating installation schedules, while supply chain disruptions from geopolitical tensions limit silver availability. Russia produces 6% of global silver. Kazakhstan provides 4%. Ukraine hosts significant silver resources. When commodity supply chains cross conflict zones, industrial planning becomes impossible. And this is where the pattern becomes dangerous. History shows a brutal pattern. When transformational technologies create sudden demand spikes for specific materials, prices don't rise gradually, they detonate. The oil infrastructure shock of 1973 demonstrated this principle. Post-war America built everything around cheap oil. Suburban sprawl, interstate highways, manufacturing designed for $3 per barrel energy. October 1973, OPEC imposed an oil embargo. Oil went from $3 to $12 per barrel in months. Gas lines formed overnight. Airlines canceled flights. Manufacturing plants reduced production. The economy that assumed energy abundance suddenly discovered scarcity. Key insight. The embargo ended, but the psychological shift was permanent. Energy could no longer be treated as unlimited industrial input. The rare earth electronics revolution of 1978 followed similar dynamics. The semiconductor industry exploded, requiring rare earth elements for every microprocessor and circuit board. The tech industry assumed these materials would scale with demand. They didn't. Rare earth extraction is environmentally complex and capital-intensive. By 1980, electronics manufacturers faced systematic shortages. China recognized the opportunity and systematically cornered production. Today, they control 85% of global supply and use export restrictions as geopolitical leverage. The fiber optic internet boom of 2000 repeated the pattern. Internet expansion required massive fiber optic cables, needing ultra-pure germanium. Telecommunications projected exponential growth, assuming germanium supply would expand. Germanium is a zinc mining byproduct. You can't mine more germanium independently. By 2001, prices spiked 400% in 18 months. Some telecommunications projects were canceled entirely. The current solar-silver crisis of 2025 represents the most severe version of this pattern. The global renewable energy transition represents the largest industrial transformation in human history. Solar installations must grow 400% in 5 years to meet climate commitments. Unlike previous transitions, solar energy isn't optional. Government mandates, carbon regulations, and ESG commitments have made renewable energy legally required. The industry can't slow down when facing supply constraints. Solar manufacturers made the same mistake. They assumed supply would scale with demand. They built capacity and signed contracts based on historical silver availability. They never considered what happens when monetary metals become industrial bottlenecks. Silver isn't like oil, rare earths, or germanium. It's been money for 5,000 years. Industrial demand now competes with monetary demand, creating feedback loops. When oil spiked, consumers drove less. When rare earths became scarce, companies redesigned products. When germanium supplies tightened, projects were delayed. But solar installations are legally mandated. California requires solar on new construction. The EU mandates renewable percentages. China committed to carbon neutrality by 2060. These aren't market decisions that can be reversed. The solar industry faces legally mandated demand growth for technology dependent on a finite resource with no substitutes. Silver mine production peaked in 2016 and hasn't grown. New deposits take 7 to 15 years to develop. Above-ground stockpiles are being drained by 7 consecutive years of consumption exceeding production. When LONGi Solar suspended contracts, they weren't responding to temporary disruptions. They acknowledged that silver supply for renewable energy commitments simply doesn't exist. The pattern is accelerating. Industries realize foundational assumptions were wrong. Panic buying begins. Prices explode until demand destruction occurs. Except this time, there are no substitutes. And demand destruction means abandoning the energy transition entirely. The data tells a story the solar industry doesn't want to acknowledge. Their expansion plans require more silver than exists. Global solar commitments versus silver supply reveal impossible mathematics. Current government mandates demand 2.95 terawatts of new solar capacity by 2030. At 20 grams per watt, that's 59,000 tons of silver, roughly 3 years of total global mine production. But here's the problem. We're not producing 59,000 tons. Global silver mine production sits at 25,000 tons annually and hasn't grown since 2016. The solar industry alone will consume more silver than humanity mines from the ground. Mexico produces 5,600 tons annually, 22% of global supply. Peru contributes 3,200 tons. China adds 3,600 tons. These 3 countries control half of global production, and none have major expansion plans that would significantly increase output within the time frame required for renewable energy commitments. The TOPCON technology crisis intensifies silver consumption requirements. Tunnel oxide passivated contact cells, the next-generation solar technology, use 30% more silver than traditional PERC panels. Every efficiency improvement increases silver consumption per watt. LONGi Solar's entire 2026 production line converts to TOPCON technology. Their annual output requires 2,400 tons of silver at current technology standards. That's roughly 10% of global production for a single manufacturer. Jinko Solar, Canadian Solar, and Trina Solar are implementing similar conversions. Combined, the top 5 solar manufacturers will require 12,000 plus tons of silver annually by 2027, nearly half of global mine production for just 5 companies. Industrial consumption lockup creates permanent silver removal from markets. Unlike monetary uses of silver, solar consumption is destructive. Once silver paste gets printed onto a solar cell, it's locked away for 25 years. Recycling rates for photovoltaic silver remain below 15% globally. Current solar installations contain approximately 35,000 tons of silver that won't return to markets for decades. By 2030, solar panels will hold 150,000 plus tons of permanently consumed silver, 6 years of total mine production. This creates a compounding supply crisis. Not only does solar manufacturing consume massive quantities annually, but every panel removes silver from circulation permanently. The available supply pool shrinks while demand accelerates. The supply response failure guarantees continued shortages. Primary silver mines represent less than 30% of production. Most silver comes as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining. When base metal prices are weak, silver supply doesn't respond to silver demand. New silver-specific mines require 10 to 15 years development. The solar crisis is happening now. Supply response won't arrive until the 2030s, too late for current commitments. First Majestic Silver operates 7 mines with 650 tons annual output. Their planned expansion could add 150 tons by 2028, just 0.6% of global production increase over 4 years. Price disconnection signals indicate systematic breakdown approaching. Shanghai silver premiums over London spot reached $3.20 per ounce in November, highest since 2011. This indicates physical scarcity in the world's largest industrial silver market. Solar manufacturers report 15 to 22-week delivery delays for silver paste, up from standard 4 to 6 weeks. When industrial users can't get materials with 6-month lead times, supply chains are breaking down. Heraeus, the German precious metals technology group, supplying 40% of global solar silver paste, issued allocation notices to customers in October 2025. They're rationing supply based on historical purchase volumes rather than current demand. When dominant suppliers implement rationing, systematic shortage has already begun. The Beijing Institute of Technology published analysis showing Chinese solar manufacturers need 4,200 tons of silver annually by 2027. China produces 3,600 tons total silver annually. The math doesn't work. When industrial demand exceeds total national production, either prices explode or industries shut down. Given legal mandates for renewable energy, price explosion becomes inevitable. The solar panic has mathematical certainty behind it. The only question is whether markets recognize the supply crisis before or after installation projects start failing due to material shortages. March 2026. First major solar installation failures due to silver shortages. The renewable energy transition isn't failing because of technology or financing. It's failing because everyone ignored basic resource mathematics. You can't build 3 terawatts of solar capacity with 25,000 tons of annual silver production. Physics doesn't care about climate commitments or government mandates. When LONGi Solar suspended contracts, they signaled the beginning of systematic delivery failures across the entire solar industry. Other manufacturers will follow. Installation projects will face delays, cancellations, cost overruns. The solar panic has begun. Not tomorrow, now. Smart money is positioning for the inevitable. When green energy mandates meet resource constraints, prices explode until new equilibrium establishes between available supply and desperate industrial demand. Your choice. Understand the math before markets do, or watch from the sidelines as the most critical industrial metal of the energy transition becomes unobtainable at any price. The solar industry bet their future on unlimited silver availability. They lost. If silver is the bottleneck no one planned for, what happens next? Let me know your take in the comments.